Well, this is the second time, I got some controversy on the comments I make, so I think it's better if I use videos. Never forget, English is not my first language, so maybe when I say something, what I'm trying to say is something different and it can be misunderstood, but, it hasn't reached much, but I think it's also good for me anyways, even if I do it on video. If you have anything like a counter or whatever, like put it down there, and if it's good, it helps my English, it helps my speaking, etc. So that's always good for me. So basically, it's about my post where I put, in all seriousness, I believe Putin beat this administration. So we're gonna start with that context. The context of what I'm saying is basically that I think Putin won between Putin and Biden. Okay, that's what I'm trying to go with, right? It's about this administration, and then I give some reasons why. For instance, I put, he got countries like Germany and France to de facto agree they will veto Ukraine entry into NATO. Yes, I do agree that maybe the word veto is not the correct one here, but what did happen, and it is very specific what happened, is that the Ukraine's ascension into NATO was basically debated and pushed back. Even, and maybe the mainstream media is not saying that overt, but for instance, Hungary, was it Hungary or Romania? It was one of the, no, it was Hungary. Hungary literally vetoed them from entering into the cybersecurity thing, and that's like step one, to start getting integrated into the NATO framework, and that's gonna push them back at least 6 months. This was done just a few days ago. And we also see that France and Germany have been negotiating with Russia on their own. And that's going to come a little later. I'm going to explain a little more on this. That says a lot. And Germany, with Ukraine, said that there are no plans to add Ukraine to NATO now. Of course, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen later. But right now, basically, we go again, right, with this pushback. They're being pushed back, their accession into NATO. So I think that's another reason. That's one way that Putin can see, okay, it's a victory. At least I can buy time. At least we can negotiate their security concerns with the European security concerns, with the American security concerns, if they really care about those, because I'm going to delve into that a little more. And he also got them and many more to show that NATO isn't that united. Well, with what I said, these people are negotiating on their own. Lithuania is on their own, basically. Estonia, Latvia did their own thing. A lot of countries are just sitting back on the sidelines. Macron took a lot of preeminence, along with the German Chancellor, etc. Another point that I put, we now know that U.S. legitimacy is questioned by allies. Large countries are already almost always at odds with the U.S. It's France, Germany, South Korea. The barometer, in my humble opinion, will be Japan, and it's already happening. I don't see the U.K. ever leaving. Okay, maybe, again, without the maybe. I'm gonna admit it, right? Again, English not my first language. The word legitimacy was not the correct one to use here. Again, context. This is this administration. Okay, let's not forget about that. Remember when I said earlier that it actually happened, that France and Germany, basically, and specifically more France, negotiated with Russia on their own, in the name of Europe, not in the name of NATO, not so much. That says a lot. I mean, why aren't they taking a stand? And that's a question you should ask yourselves, right? Okay, sure, Germany is not militarily that important, but it is economically important. France is militarily important, not that much economically. But why aren't they doing, just taking a stand? Because they don't see this administration specifically as very reliable. And in that sense, I meant it's not as, that's what I try to say when I said it. They don't view it as very legitimate. It's kind of like the U.S. says something, and it's kind of like, I don't know. I think you're gonna leave me out to dry, dude, because if the shit hits the fan here, it's gonna hit here. You're gonna be all the way over there, and you're gonna leave half your troops behind to die or whatever. I don't know, kind of like in Afghanistan, etc. So they decided to do it on their own, and I repeat again the same point that I said before. Like, I mean, you have the most powerful alliance in human history, and you're conceding. Again, like it or not, the fact that the NATO, Ukraine's ascension into NATO has been postponed even in the in the basic level, like security, cybersecurity, and that kind of stuff, that's literally like step one. Is like, okay, you're not gonna do step one right now, please, let's talk about this 6 months from now. And that's talk about this. It's not like, oh, it's okay. It's like what happened to me with my visa, right? My visa application. I sent my request. They said enter your waiver. Then they said, we're not gonna do it now. You just gotta come next week and just give your prints. And they gave it to me. It was literally just a delay of 1 week. Not a big deal. Nothing happened. I have my visa, no problem. But this isn't that. This is like, we're gonna talk about it in 6 months. So it's a whole different ball game. What's going on here? And the examples I put between France, Germany, South Korea, France and Germany, and I already gave this example. What do I mean with South Korea? South Korea is already a member of the Belt and Road Initiative with China. Again, why did I say Japan? Japan is very important because Japan is a country that is specifically like at odds with the US's biggest rival, which is China. Historically, they're at odds. But they're already entering some pacts, economic pacts. And then you start to wonder, what if they negotiate? I mean, that's what I mean in the barometer. If they ever negotiate a privileged position in the Belt and Road Initiative, Germany as well, because Germany is kind of like, it reaches the border to Germany. And they're kind of like, okay, but what if we go in? That's a very big barometer. When these two, I only put Japan, but I think we should put these two. For example, if these two countries already kind of like go their own way even more than usual, that says a lot, because they're gonna be part of basically a Eurasian Union, and they kind of like tell the U.S. we don't care. We care more about our economy than your security. It's not as important to us. We saw that with Vietnam, for instance. Vietnam also has ancient quarrels with China, and yet this was a backfire, in my humble opinion, of the Trump administration when they put the tariffs on Chinese goods, because what they did was then open a lot of factories in Vietnam. They did 95% of the product in China. They just finished assembling them in Vietnam, and it's like made in Vietnam, and they bypassed those things, right? So it was actually rather, we gotta admit, it was kind of smart, right? But that's my point. I mean, these people used to have like, it doesn't matter, I don't need to do a lot. They didn't even need to spend a lot in the military, which is also kind of bad. I do agree with what Trump did with telling them to, you guys got to put, you agreed to pay 2% of GDP on this stuff, do it, because they weren't doing that. Because again, they had the big kid on the block backing them up. The fact that they're doing it now says a lot. And another point, if you check, the last time there was a Russian buildup, it was over 200,000 troops. Now it's half. How come there wasn't any fuss back then? And you can go back even more. You read about Russian troops killing Ukrainian troops, stuff like that, even as far as as close by as 2020. But then no, they're reducing the level of their threat. They didn't even have divisions of aircraft and helicopters nearby. Of course, they can be moved literally in hours, but they didn't have them in the field, because you also have to move all the stuff. You have to move the fuel, you have to move the ammunition, you have to move the food, you have to move everything. They weren't there. They had half the troops and only land. Some land attack. They didn't have the support system, the AWACS and all that kind of stuff. And it was a mess now. What does that tell you? That tells you that the counterpart is viewed as much weaker. I'm gonna leave this as part 1 because I think YouTube only allows me to put 10 minutes, so I'm gonna leave it here. If you have any comments, anything that I can improve, any things you wanna question, I'm more than welcome to have it. As I said, it helps me a lot, because it helps me view things from different perspectives. It helps me better my language, my etc. So please do it. I'll post the second one right now. I'm gonna do it right now. So that's it.